Halo 2, the title that some have called arguably the best in this entire video game franchise. I got the chance to play it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I finished it completely through with the multiplayer and the campaign, and in this video, I'm going to give you all my thoughts on the game and why it has shaped my love for Halo a lot more than maybe any other game that I've played so far in this series when it comes to its lore and its mythology. So of course, it doesn't go without saying, but to get to this point, I obviously had to go back and play Halo Combat Evolved for the first time, and my thoughts on that game are already on my channel. You can go check that out in the card above. Basically, I thought that the game was good, and it did some cool things, even if the game, to my personal opinion, was very dated to play. I don't think that it's any different here when we come over to Halo 2, although I do personally find that Halo 2 is a much better video game, Halo or not. At the same time, this is Halo at its peak best. I found the multiplayer to be more enjoyable, and I also found the campaign to be more compelling from the gameplay perspective, but also the story, its lore, world building, and its characters. Although, like with Halo Combat Evolved, the game is dated to the core, and so for me as a new generation Halo player, I find that it has its struggles at points. I don't think that this is a perfect game like many people have said, but I think it is certainly close to that. Like I did with my Halo Combat Evolved video, I'm going to start with the campaign. I think that the campaign here is much better than the first game, as it continues the story that was set up in Combat Evolved. Master Chief and humanity have to stop the Covenant from taking over another Halo, but this time around, it takes a different angle than Combat Evolved, an angle that I had no recollection about and had no idea that I was expecting to experience. That is the experience of playing as the Covenant, or in this case, the Arbiter, who is voiced by Keith David, who I might add does a fantastic job as this character. It is really interesting that they went down this path with this game, especially considering the fact that I find that Halo 2's story is much more focused on the Covenant side this time around. Both the humans and the Covenant get equal focus, but I like that this game also takes a stance to mainly have you be in the shoes of the Arbiter and Chief. I particularly liked the beginning of the game, as we see that one of these characters is welcomed back and rewarded for their success with what happened in the last game, as opposed to the other one who is tortured and punished for their failure. This storytelling is also beautifully communicated through the new and improved remastered cutscenes, as I experienced it through the remastered Master Chief Collection. There is a much more heavier character focus this time around in this story as opposed to the first game, which I think focused more on the story as opposed to focusing on its characters. I definitely got more interested into Chief and also into Arbiter, as this is his first appearance in the campaigns. Both are fighting for something that they really truly believe in, and that is automatically a great way to get a player attached to a character. When you experience stories like this, you want to be able to follow a character who believes in something, like every other person that you would know believes in something. It also, to a point, matters how it is executed, and I think that they did it well here. Chief believes in fighting for humanity, obviously, and protecting it at all costs, as it is currently in the process of being destroyed by the Covenant. The Arbiter is fighting against the Covenant because he believes that it is being taken over by a religious cult of these prophets who are using their power to be corrupt and gain control of the military force and destroy all life. That is why they are so desperate to gain control of the Halos. This, in turn, is how we follow their stories as the game progresses, where the main crux of the story is that both sides are trying to prevent each other from controlling this new Halo called Delta Halo. Like with the first game on this Halo, there is also the Flood, but there is a kick to it in the sense that the Flood has actually taken over way more on this Halo than any other one. You have this Flood being called the Gravemind that is essentially the reason why our main characters get sent to their missions, at least in the final acts of the story. I thought that that was really cool, and I really liked that the Flood, who essentially is the actual biggest enemy of these games, is the one who sends Arbiter and Chief away to do their thing. They did something different here with this story path of following each different side of the conflict, other than just one like they did with Combat Evolved, where all you did was follow Chief and Cortana. Speaking of Cortana, I really liked her a lot more in this game as well, and overall, I just like all the characters a lot more here. Sergeant Johnson is also introduced way more into this game. He's got a very interesting personality to the point where I'd probably follow that dude in battle. He gives an energy to the idea of fighting against the Covenant that feels like, fuck yeah, let's go, and he doesn't worry too much about what could happen to him. Captain Keyes' daughter, Miranda Keyes, also gets introduced along with Admiral Hood, and I didn't really care too much for these characters because they are a little bit more in the background, and I say that, but yeah, Miranda and Johnson do have a big role to play. I just felt like Miranda Keyes and Admiral Hood specifically were a little bit more in the background than other characters were. That's a good transition because on the Covenant side, I was a little bit more fascinated with the Covenant prophets and also a brute called Tartarus. He is the main villain to the Arbiter in the sense that they actually worked together at first, but there is the twist where he's actually working for the prophets against the Arbiter. His task is to find this key that will automatically start the Delta Halo. Very interesting character, although I will say he probably had one of the most anticlimactic deaths that I've ever seen. After you kill him, quite literally nothing happens, and you don't even get a cutscene with him in his death, and so I thought that was a big waste there. What I did, however, believe that was not a big waste was the world building and the lore expansion that this game goes so heavily into. This is why I believe that Halo 2 is the peak Halo game, at least based off what I've played so far in this area of the franchise. So obviously, the first game did some lore stuff as well, but I think that it was so expanded in this game that it made me feel so in love with how this world was set up. Remember when I said that the game took the approach of equally focusing on the Covenant and the humans? Well, this time, the lore has a much bigger exploration with the Covenant than anything else. The terminals that you go up to in these campaigns allow you to have lore dumps given to you. In Combat Evolved, a lot of these terminals were specifically focused on the lore of the Halos. Here in Halo 2, I love that the terminals were primarily focused on giving you the lore and background of the Covenant. It might be funny for you all to not believe what I'm going to say here, but I actually did not know originally that the Covenant was comprised of different species of aliens. I guess my dumb brain never put two and two together in thinking that there was no possible way all these aliens could be of the same species. You have the elites, grunts, jackals, and the brutes, of which are different species than each other. I love that the terminals gave us explorations of all that stuff. This franchise is very much steeped in the themes of the unknown. It begs you to ask questions, especially when given that the main story is you, no matter which species you are playing as, trying to figure out what the Halos are and their purpose. Like the main characters in these games, you as a player are also trying to uncover the unknown. It makes it feel like you are right there with them during that experience. And I also just love how much that these games focus on that idea of world building. It's just so fantastic. I feel like that is also the case for a character like the Arbiter in the sense that he is trying to find his purpose and what side he's supposed to play. It is a really cool dichotomy to look at when you explore what this game is going for. With regards to the ending, I am definitely curious to see how this transfers over to when I go and play Halo 3. It seems like a lot of the story beats are going to continue on over there, and with how much I did enjoy the story, I am automatically invested in wanting to continue the journey with playing these older Halo games for the first time. The other part of this campaign that I really do love is that the game feels a lot more fun than the first one, and that's not to say that Combat Evolved is not a fun game. I just felt like I had a much better experience with the gameplay and also watching some of the cool and badass moments that are played out in the cutscenes. For example, this game is the one that features the iconic scene of Chief taking the Covenant bomb and flying on it through space into a Covenant cruiser, and I thought that was just sick, even if it's the most improbable and impossible thing that you could ever see happen. I've mentioned it already, but the game has its dated qualities, and a lot of that obviously has to do with the gameplay. I still think that the vehicle gameplay in these older games is not very good, if at all. It's just super clunky and annoying, especially with the Banshees specifically. I hate the Banshee gameplay in these games. I also very much preferred to play on the new remastered graphics, since the Master Chief Collection gives you the ability to play on either or. The gun combat is also a significant upgrade here, and I particularly really liked that this game adds in a dual wielding effect with some guns like the new SMG or the Needlers. I described Halo Combat Evolved in the sense that it feels like you are playing an old school arcade game on a console, and I felt that you got that again here with Halo 2. It is simple, fun gameplay with a nice and cool, interesting story with epic lore expansion. The other part of this game that I of course got the chance to play was the multiplayer, and this is where I feel like I'm going to get a lot of heat from people, which is totally fine, and I'm ready to hear the conversations about it. The way that I look at the multiplayer of the Halo franchise is that I personally prefer the gameplay aesthetics and the pacing of how the new games are to the older ones. However, I would say that the systems with regards to ranking up, progression, customization, and so on and so forth are much better in the older games. There was a simplicity to it all, and that's why I think that the old Halo games are as beloved by people when things are as simple as this, when people are attached to it as much as they are. Systems of what a game like Infinite does, where it's just not as good of a rank system, the progression system is based off a battle pass, and that stuff is just really not that good. Even though I played this game through MCC, I have seen clips of what the original game looked like, and their systems look a lot better. However, I prefer playing the new games, and so I hope that all makes sense in context. I think the perfect Halo game you could make is one that has the gameplay of the new ones, and then the systems of the old. And for me personally, I would probably play a lot of multiplayer if I had to choose Halo 5 over Halo 2, for example, by today's standards. The biggest compliment and amount of respect I can give Halo 2's multiplayer is that if I grew up with this game, I probably would be playing it every single day and skipping school like I imagine a lot of people did. With all that in mind, those are my thoughts on Halo 2, a game of which I still believe, as the thumbnail says, is peak Halo at its best. I very much am looking forward to continuing my play of the old games for a first time run with Halo 3 next, and a lot of people put both these games together as the best in the franchise, arguably, and I am very curious to see if my mind will change on Halo 3 for that reason. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe so that you are ready for my Halo 3 video, and turn on that notification bell to be notified when it comes. Let's also see if we can hit a goal of 100 likes on this video. I hope everyone here watching has a great rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for my Halo 3 video. This is Orion, signing out.